this is Megan. Today I want to take you on a little tour of my UK scrapbooks. So these are documenting a study abroad program that I did back in 2017 when I was in college. So it's been a minute. It took me a little while to get this all into scrapbooks. I was taking an English and literature class called Literary London. So we basically went around the UK, mostly stayed around London, but went on a few other little trips to see different places with literary significance, which is super cool. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I was really excited about it. And we got to see a lot of cool stuff. I'm really excited to flip through this today. So to start off the album, I have this little luggage tag that I actually got at one of the pre-trip meetings. I got a special prize for being the first person to sign up for the trip. So I thought that would be fun to add as a little flip. And in here where you would usually put the contact information, I've got a picture of my friend and I getting ready to take off on our flight. Next we've got this little 3x8 card. This is from an Ali Edwards kit, and I didn't bother to do anything with it. I left it exactly how it was because I thought it was super cute, and it showed off the place where we were spending most of the trip. And then on the back, I added a receipt from the airport. I had to buy a water bottle at Starbucks. So, you know, it's fun to have these little pieces that show kind of the process of getting to the destination. I think that's fun. Speaking of, I've got this envelope that I've punched and stuck right into the album. And it's got a little note that one of my friends wrote me before I left saying, like, good luck, have fun in London. And I thought that was a special part of this story too. So I wanted to tuck that into this album. And I've got one last little small piece before actually getting into the bulk of the album. I've got the boarding pass, and then on the back I added my rail pass too. And these actually didn't really fit in a 3x8 pocket, so I kind of made my own pocket. I took a 6x8, slipped these in here, and then used a fuse tool to seal that up, and it made the perfect little pocket. And now we're on to, finally, the first page of the actual trip. We dropped off our bags and went immediately to the British Library as soon as we landed. So I wrote about that a little bit with my typewriter straight onto the photo, and I thought that was pretty fun. And I've got a tag that came from our hostel. They had a little wall where you could write down what you were planning on doing that day and tying up the tag on the wall. I didn't tie mine up. I took it home and put it in my scrapbook. And I've got a receipt here too for some of the stuff I bought in the gift shop because of course I did. It's a little faded, but that doesn't bother me too much. I'm just happy to have the receipt and be able to keep that. Now this page, I technically should not have. I did not realize that you were not supposed to take pictures in the exhibit at the British Library. So I took a few pictures and then was informed that you were not supposed to take pictures. So I didn't take any more pictures, but I also did not delete the ones that I had. So don't tell anyone about this. But there were so many cool artifacts that I wrote a little bit about. So this was really cool. PSA though, don't take pictures in the museum at the British Library. The next morning we went to York, which was super cool. I loved York, but I was really excited that we took a train out of King's Cross Station. So I journaled a little bit about that, and I made this card. I'm really proud of this card. I didn't have any 4x6 journaling cards that really fit, that I really liked, and I wanted to make sure I labeled King's Cross. And so I kind of just made this from scratch. The background grid I made with just a ruler and a gray colored pencil. And then I did the same thing over here with this one to kind of make it all fit together. And I had some die cut letters that I just popped out and stuck on here. And then a big sticker from an Ali Edwards travel kit. I was so happy with how this turned out. And then it just so happened to have a matching sticker that ended up being the same color as the letters I picked. So I'm super happy with that. And here we are on our very first day in York. The first thing we did was go on this wall walk, which I didn't really know about until being actually on this trip. But it was super cool. It's a super, super historical wall that you can just kind of walk around the city on. I added this little insert, and this is actually a clipping from the brochure. There was a whole brochure about all the different tourist attractions in York, and so instead of writing about it, I just kind of cut that out and let that serve as my journaling here. And some pictures of this amazing view. Oh my gosh, so cool. Oh my goodness, we have the fudge shop next. This fudge shop, we were walking down the street and one of the employees was outside advertising, hey, they're free fudge samples, come on in. They finally convinced us to come in. And we hung out there for like an hour. We were talking to some of the locals, talking to the employees, and then we bought some fudge. And so I added that bag in here as a piece of ephemera. One of the coolest experiences. I loved that. We've got some pictures of our hostel. This was where we stayed for a couple of nights. We've got some pictures of our beds, talking about the room we were staying in, because it was actually a historical house. And so we were staying in the housekeeper's room. And then I've got a picture of us doing class. This is kind of what our classes looked like throughout the month. It's just finding rooms in different hostels and different places out in the city to sit down and hear a lecture or do a little worksheet. And so this is, I used a sticker that said this month looks like this, because it really did. This whole month we were just kind of finding little corners in which to do our classes. And that was really fun. That was neat. We've got some more pictures of exploring York. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun wandering around. My little group of friends, we went to a whole bunch of stores, walked up and down the streets. I loved the walkable streets in this city. So good. I've got a postcard for a tea room. I did not actually get anything at the tea room. Actually, I wanted to get a pressed penny at a pressed penny machine nearby, but I didn't have any change. So we went into this shop and asked if they could give us change, and they said, well, only if you buy something. So I bought one postcard so that they could give me some change to use in the penny machine. I've got this page with a bunch of little 2x2 squares just to try and cram in more photos because I have a lot of pictures from York. We explored a lot. And then in the gaps, I added just some little pieces of ephemera. I've got some coins tucked in there. And then on the other side of this, I've got pictures from York Minster, which was also so cool, and I have so many pictures of. This was the first cathedral that we went in, first cathedral I'd ever been in at all. And so I've got pictures of lighting a candle in there, just some pictures of the architecture, saying a little prayer. They had a fun little area downstairs that was more interactive, and they had like dress up clothes and stuff, and so we tried some of that on. I've also got some less silly pictures of it. This room was so cool. It was this huge round room with tall ceilings, and it was completely silent. You were not supposed to talk when you came in here. And just standing here in silence, it was so cool. I'm going to say that a lot because so much of this trip was so cool. And then something I didn't love quite as much, we did the climb up to the top. Very rewarding. I probably wouldn't do it again. These steps were very steep and very tight spiral staircase all the way up. It was gorgeous. My legs were shaking by the time I was at the top. So it was kind of fun getting to go on a trip with other people who had other things they wanted to do, because I definitely would not have done that if it was just me. But since, all of our excursions were planned for us, I got to try stuff that I definitely wouldn't have booked myself. So I wrote a little bit about that on this journal card with my typewriter, about loving the view, not loving the climb quite as much. While we were exploring, we saw this little coffee shop called the Perky Peacock. And as soon as we saw it, we were like, we have to go in there. So me and a couple of friends went over there. I got some hot chocolate. We sat in the coffee shop and had drinks, and it was really fun. Got some more pictures just from kind of wandering around the city. And then dinner that night, we went to what is known as the most haunted pub in York, I believe. I didn't get a ton of pictures of it. I just got this one picture at the bar. But again, instead of journaling, I just cut this little description out of the brochure and pasted that in there. I love using ephemera whenever I can, so I will take any excuse to cut up little pieces of paper and shove them into pockets. The next day we went to York Art Gallery. The whole building was just gorgeous. The staircase, so pretty, and then I've got an insert of just the brochure that has all the information in it, and then on the back of that I kind of collaged some of the other handouts, and this is another piece from the York brochure, and I kind of cut it up and put together this nice little collage. I thought that was a fun different way to include that. After York, we went out to Edinburgh, and the first thing we did was go to Greyfriars Bobby, go see the cemetery there. And so I've got a cute picture of me and my friends and us kind of looking around at the scenery. Somebody caught a picture of us all having our arms linked and walking together. I thought that was so cute, and I definitely wanted to document that. That first night, we went out to dinner. I got a picture of my burger and chips and just a picture of me and my friends hanging out. And I wrote a little bit about the trip over there, because walking up and down the Royal Mile, we saw bagpipers with kilts, we saw sword swallowers, pretty touristy area, but also just some cool stuff. I did not expect to actually see people in kilts when we were in Scotland. That was really cool. And then after dinner, we saw this little patisserie, and we totally knew we had to go. So I have the coaster from my hot chocolate in here. Forewarning, I had a lot of hot chocolate on this trip. I don't have pictures of it all, but I was averaging 1 or 2 hot chocolates a day. It was terrible, but so good. So I got a hot chocolate, obviously, and I wrote a little bit about that, the desserts we got, and how we saw a few more of these around and went to them most of the time we saw them. Just some more pictures of wandering around the city. I got a picture of our hostel that we were staying at, and I've got a receipt for a water bottle. Apparently I needed water that day. One of the big things that we were doing that day was going to the Writers' Museum, which I was super excited about. You can see a friend took a picture of me being absolutely ecstatic walking through that door. But I actually ended up not knowing many of the writers whose artifacts were on display, so I was a little bummed out about that. However, they did have behind glass a first edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. One of our friends actually got this picture of us looking at the book. You were not supposed to take pictures of the book. So I don't have any pictures of the book, but that's fine. I am really happy that I've got the picture of us just standing there in awe looking at it. I think that's a lot cooler than actually having a picture of the book anyway. So then we went to Edinburgh Castle, which was a lot of fun. I'm going to say that about literally every page in the book because I had a lot of fun. But I got a bunch of pictures of me hanging out at the castle, our friends hanging out at the castle. I added in my printed ticket, another picture of our whole class there at the castle, and then probably my favorite picture of me at the castle. I thought that was really cute, and so I wanted to blow it up and make it a full-page photo. After our tour, we went to the tea room, and being able to say that I've drank tea at a castle is super cool and super crazy. So I've got pictures of the menu, of us pouring our tea, and then I have this little card. I needed to fill some space, and I used Canva to write out the lyrics to the song Castle on a Hill. That song had just come out pretty recently, I'm pretty sure. And we were literally in a castle on a hill. And so that song always makes me think of this trip, and we were listening to that on the trip. And so I wanted to add that in as a fun little bonus, and then just add a sticker on top of that. The next morning we went to church at a cathedral, which I obviously had never done before. It was super cool. So I wrote a little bit about that, about what it was like to be sitting in this congregation in another country. So I got a picture of the outside and the inside where we had church service. I added in the program, and then hidden behind that I've got the handout from the hostel. But you can pull this out, look through it. This was the program from the service that day. And then I've got a couple of just silly pictures of me with my friends. We were hanging out for a while before service started, so we were taking some silly pictures. This was super neat. As we were walking around through the city, one of my friends and I noticed this building, and both of us recognized it immediately as the Elephant House, which is where J.K. Rowling wrote a lot of the Harry Potter books. And so we were obviously excited because we're nerds. And so I loved that this Allie Edwards card really kind of explained the sentiment of finding this. I love waking up in the morning and not knowing what's going to happen or who I'm going to meet or where I'm going to wind up. I wrote a little bit about it there. I've got one of their little handouts added in here, and pictures of the restaurant and what I ate. I got a couple of postcards while I was there because they were really pretty. And so I figured I'd add those in here. And hey, look, another hot chocolate. Certainly won't be the last hot chocolate. And then I got a picture of, this is super weird, in the bathrooms. You can sign your name on the wall. A bunch of people have done it. There are names everywhere, messages everywhere. And so we left our names there. We wrote little messages that would stay there in the Elephant House, and that was a cool experience too. So I got a picture of that. That night we went to this Frankenstein diner, pub. It was a pub, and that was another thing I totally wouldn't have picked out, but my friends were interested in it, and we had a great time. And I got pictures from the next morning. We went to the Scottish National Gallery. More art, lots more art. And I wrote a little bit about that. And I wrote about how half our group decided to go climb Arthur's Seat. And I had enough climbing at this point. I was done with climbing, so I opted for the art museum. And then I've got a picture of my friends. We were all on the train together going to our next destination. And I'm so glad that I have this just captured, a picture of everybody just hanging out, talking, enjoying the ride on our way to Oxford. We got there pretty late in the evening, so our first stop was dinner at the Eagle and Child, which, if you're familiar, is where the Inklings met. So writers like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien worked on their stories here and met and talked about them. And wow, it's crazy to imagine. Super cool experience. So glad that I got to eat here. And that next morning we went to Christ Church in Oxford, which, is significant for several reasons, especially to me being a Harry Potter nerd. I have the brochure in here, a few more pictures of just the inside. Here's where I got excited. This was a filming location for a decent few scenes in the Harry Potter movies. So You might recognize this staircase from, honestly, pretty much all of the movies. This is the stairway up to the Great Hall, and then this is the Great Hall itself. I have all these little stickers. They actually came from a mug that my friend gave me, but she had gotten it off of Etsy, and so it was just vinyl stickers stuck on a mug, and they were starting to come off, so I figured this would be a good place to keep them, right here in this scrapbook. After Christ Church, we walked around the city a little bit. We did a walking tour. I got some pictures of some famous buildings, and then we saw this exhibition with a whole bunch more cool literary artifacts. We've got an early copy of Alice in Wonderland. We've got the written draft of Frankenstein and some illustrations by Tolkien. All super cool stuff. And then I've got a receipt for lunch that we just kind of picked up on the way while we were walking around. And then this was cool. We took a double-decker bus. So we've got pictures of us being super excited, pictures of being up on the second level of the bus. And then I wrote a little bit about the experience and how we were riding the bus to the Kilns, which is C.S. Lewis's home. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. So I added just a little collage of the pictures of the outside of the house and pictures of his office. Super cool. And I wrote about that on a journal card. And then a few more places around the grounds. This is a photo of the wardrobe that inspired The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then they had a little recreation kind of in the attic of what that attic room was meant to look like. And then we walked around the grounds. We took a hike around where Lewis would have taken hikes and thought about writing. Then we went to Cardiff, Wales. That was our next destination. One of the big things we did, for some reason, I don't know why, it has nothing to do with literature. We went to the Doctor Who Museum. I loved it. I had actually been watching Doctor Who with friends leading up to the trip because I knew we were going here. And people had been telling me I would love Doctor Who for years. And so I went ahead and watched as much of it as I could before I went. And it was totally worth it because I actually knew what was going on here. We've got another brochure kind of explaining the experience. You can pull that out and read about it. And then my ticket to the Doctor Who experience. They had this whole interactive exhibit, and of course I bought stuff at the gift shop, so I've got my receipt here. And then a whole bunch of pictures of some of the props. I took way too many pictures here, so I narrowed it down to the most important stuff. Some of the more iconic costumes. I got a picture of me on a set. One of the sets that was used for the TARDIS. There's a K9. We love K9. And then once we finished at the museum, we had an adventure, I will say. We tried to get to our hostel. We had to take a bus that then stopped. Like it couldn't go any further because the roads were so rural, so muddy, so small. And so we had to get out and walk through the dark, rainy, muddy path to get to our hostel. We reached a gate that was locked. So we had to throw our luggage over the gate and climb over. It was terrible. It felt super sketchy. It was not sketchy, we learned later. But we were exhausted. We had already missed several trains and had to walk across the city. We were delirious at this point. So I have this little quote card about travel not always being pretty. And then pictures of us all in our hostel just laughing. We were delirious. It was so much fun. Next morning we come to find out this is our view. It was gorgeous. It was such a stark contrast from the night before when everything felt, it was dark, it was rainy, it was muddy. I was seriously, back of my mind was thinking, am I gonna die tonight? And then the next morning, it was the most beautiful beach view. I walked out there and just kind of stood there for a few minutes, watching the waves and taking it in. It was amazing. We went to breakfast, and then we went to the Dylan Thomas house and the museum that goes along with it. There were a bunch of just cool old artifacts there, and then this is a picture of a neon sign that was at the museum. And then the end of our adventure in Wales, we decided we were going to make mac and cheese for dinner. So the hostel had a community kitchen that we could use. We all went grocery shopping and pitched in to make this mac and cheese. It turned out awful. It is the worst mac and cheese I've ever had in my life. But it was so funny. We were having so much fun putting together this awful mac and cheese. And so I wrote about that. I included my receipt from buying my ingredients at the grocery store to pitch in. And that was just a fitting end to the first half of our trip before we headed back to London. So the second album is primarily us getting to London and spending most of the rest of the trip there. So we've got a bunch of just cute cards explaining this is us heading to London. And I've got a picture that a friend took of me journaling on the train, which I thought was so cool to have a picture of. And here we are in London. Finally, we got Big Ben, we got the London Eye. We walked around the city a little bit. I've got a little receipt of picking up lunch. And then this is our hotel where we stayed for the majority of the trip. I got a little card from the front desk, and this is us having class in the stairway, which, like I said, we had classes in lots of odd places because we didn't have a classroom. And so that was super fun. We went to Stonehenge. I've got a bunch of pictures of Stonehenge. I've got the ticket. I've got a fun selfie of me in front of the rocks. I had someone take a picture of me with the sheep because there were a bunch of sheep nearby. Lots of little embellishments from Allie Edwards travel kits. We've got the brochure that you can, pull out, flip through if you want to, and a picture of our friends all hanging out at Stonehenge. Then we went to Winchester Cathedral, another super cool cathedral. I've got my ticket, I've got the brochure, and a bunch of pictures, me being super excited about how beautiful this room was, lighting more candles, and then we went down to the crypt, which, again, not something that I would have gone out of my way to do, but we all went down there. It was a little bit creepy, super cool though. And then we went to go see Arthur's Table. We got a picture of our whole class there, some silly pictures of us playing with the dress-up stuff that they had laying around. And then we had church the next morning where we went to Wesley's Chapel, which was super cool. I grew up Methodist, so I know all the stuff about John Wesley. And it was super cool to get to go to the church that was his church and sing a lot of the songs that I grew up singing during service. It was a really cool experience. We went to the Natural History Museum, got a couple of pictures of that. We went to Westminster Abbey, and you're actually not allowed to take pictures in Westminster Abbey, so this is all I've got is the admission bracelet that I just kind of glued on to a card. Then I wrote a little bit about our food from the trip. I told you that wasn't the last hot chocolate you were going to see. And so I wrote a little bit about that, the food that we had at breakfasts, and then the expansive, what we called our pantry in our room. We had brought a bunch of snacks, bought a bunch of stuff at grocery stores, and so this was our snack supply. and ended up being kind of our dinner some nights if we didn't feel like going out. And this grocery is just brioche rolls. That was brioche rolls and bananas was dinner for a couple of nights. We went to the National Portrait Gallery and the National Gallery, so I've got some pictures of me outside the museum and then a couple of the more notable artworks that we got to see when we were in there. That was really cool. Then we went to the bookstores. I got some vintage books here. There were some more hipster, modern bookstores, all sorts of stores here. Then we took a day trip out to Canterbury. And I read Canterbury Tales in high school, and then we read some excerpts of it for this trip. And we also read Murder in the Cathedral for this trip. So I had heard a bunch about this cathedral in particular. So it was really cool to get to see it. Super pretty, super beautiful. Another brochure just for some information there. Lots of cool architecture. If you have read Murder in the Cathedral or know the story, that's where that happened. A little creepy, but kind of cool. Lighting some more candles there was super fun, and we got a picture of our whole class there. When we got back to London, we went to the Globe Theatre, which is at this point it's a recreation because the original is no longer around, but it's the theater where Shakespeare's plays were performed in his day. So I got pictures of the inside where the stage is and then the outside. And I wrote a little bit about the exhibition and learning some of the history behind it, which was super cool. And on our way to the Globe Theatre, we actually crossed the Millennium Bridge, which I had no idea we were going to see on this trip. It's a super famous bridge. I mostly recognized it from super nerdy things like Harry Potter and Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not cultured, I just am a nerd. So it was super cool to turn the corner and see, oh my gosh, we're walking across this bridge to get there. And then we walked back across it to get to lunch. We went to St. Paul's Cathedral. This was another one where you couldn't take pictures inside, so I don't have any pictures of that. But it is also another one where you can climb to the top. And I begrudgingly did so. I totally wasn't going to do it, but my friends convinced me. Such a beautiful view. And then I wrote a little bit about kind of what I was thinking when these pictures were taken. I said, despite how serene these pictures may look, my legs are shaking and my breath is heavy. It is such a lovely view, but very not sturdy steps. And then this little railing is all that's keeping you from just totally falling off the edge. So I'm glad I did it. I probably would not do it again. It was not my favorite moment. And then I did include my ticket in here. I thought that was super cute and it fit perfectly into the pocket. That night we went to Hyde Park and just walked around. That was super fun because we were off of class time, so we were free to wander around. A bunch of friends and I just kind of wandered around, enjoyed the sunset. And then that night, after we wandered around the park and everything, we went to a show. It was actually a Cirque du Soleil show, which I'd never done. Super fun experience. The show was an adaptation of The Tempest, which we read for class, so it was pretty cool. The next day, we went to Stratford-upon-Avon and got to see a bunch of Shakespeare stuff. This was Shakespeare's childhood home, or his birth home, and going around you can kind of see traces of his parents' professions, what their lifestyle was like. We went to Holy Trinity Church, which is actually where Shakespeare and his wife Anne Hathaway are buried. You can see the altar here. The graves are right here. I, again, didn't include any pictures because, I don't know, it felt a little bit morbid to include pictures of graves in the scrapbook, but I did want to write about them and note that I got to see them. That was super cool. This is what's called Shakespeare's new place. It was kind of his adulthood home once he had started writing and gotten famous. The actual home is not really standing anymore, but these gardens are in their place. You were standing in the place where the house had once been. And then after that, we went to the Hathaway house, which is obviously where Anne Hathaway lived, where her family lived. So we got some pictures hanging out around there, and then a picture of the house, which was super cute. The next morning, we went to go see the changing of the guard. It was so cold and so early, but I was glad we went. It was cool to watch. Got to see the palace, got to see some of the guards. Loved getting to see that. Then we went to Charles Dickens' house. Lots more just historical stuff, seeing where famous writers lived. Got the brochure here. And then I've got pictures of some of the artifacts, some manuscripts, some books, a window from the original house. Then we went to the British Museum. Got to see a lot of cool stuff there. Got to see the Rosetta Stone, which I was super, super excited about. And then some more modern stuff. This was like a currency exhibit with a bunch of pop culture stuff that I was really interested in. This is a page with kind of just a bunch of the food that we had that didn't really fit on the other pages. So I wrote down, I've got them all labeled 1, 2, 3, and then I wrote down what everything was. That we had lunch after going to the palace, and I got some cannolis. They were really good. Went out to dinner with friends, and I got a calzone. And then we went to this Greek restaurant called Santorini. It was incredible. It was like my favorite restaurant of the whole trip. And so I've got a picture of my chicken skewer. It was so good. Oh my gosh, I still think about it sometimes. Then we went on a little weekend trip. We had a free weekend during our month there. And so some friends and I pitched in to get a hostel, and we went to Paris, which was super cool. One night in Paris, just blitzing all of the tourist attractions. So we got there, we needed to have supper, so we went to a restaurant. I got a nice simple pasta with cheese sauce. It was delicious. Some of my friends did get escargot. I thought about it. I did not try any. A couple of my friends tried some. I added the yes and no stickers on here to indicate that was not my vibe. I was not feeling escargot. And I wrote about that. And then this is our hostel. We had a little spiral staircase going up, and then I got a little card from our hostel. And then we went out on the city. First thing we did was go see the Louvre. This is our first view of the Eiffel Tower, which was so surreal. Got some pictures at the Louvre, and I wrote a bit about our adventures walking around the city. And we went in. We went to the Louvre. I got my ticket. I wrote a bit about it here. And it was gorgeous inside. So I got some pictures of just the general museum, and then of course the Mona Lisa. We went to go see the Mona Lisa, and I've got my receipt for buying the ticket. Got a few more pictures of just walking around the beautiful building that houses all of the art. I had to get some cash transferred over into euros because I didn't have any of those. So I've got a receipt for that, and then all of us eating crepes. And then we went to the Eiffel Tower. We went at night, so it's dark and it's all lit up, which was really fun. And then I wrote about the Paris moment, which we had several people tell us when we said, yeah, we're thinking about going to Paris. People were saying you're gonna have this moment when it just hits you and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm in Paris. And that was this for me. And so I wrote about that and included the pictures of us standing up under the Eiffel Tower. And I've got another set of these little 2x2 pockets. They were perfect for adding in my change. I actually didn't spend a ton of money when we were there. So I had a bunch of coins left over and actually a bill. left over. And then I've got a bunch of these cute little plastic bits from an Allie Edwards kit that shows a whole bunch of the places that we got to visit. I also do have these little bits that I cut out from a Starbucks sleeve because we did get Starbucks. If you can guess, I got a hot chocolate. So more hot chocolate to come. Got this big blown up picture of the tower the next morning. So I thought it was fun to kind of have the nighttime and morning pictures. I love this picture. It's kind of exactly what I imagined when I thought about going to the Eiffel Tower and going to Paris. This was kind of what I pictured. And I just love this shot. And we did go up closer to the Eiffel Tower. I've got some pictures of that. And then we went to the Arc de Triomphe. Another thing that, you hear about all the time, but actually being there was really cool. And so we got a group picture there. I included my Metro cards because that was another big thing for being on this trip, was getting a Metro card so we could get around to all these big places. Then I've got the most aesthetic brunch I've probably ever eaten. We went to this little cafe. Everybody got breakfast. I had another hot chocolate, if you can believe it. This was my little breakfast, and it was delicious. We went to one of the Love Lock bridges, which was fun. Got to see all of the locks that people have attached to this bridge and written their name on it. And so I got some pictures of that. And I've got my Starbucks. We went back to the Louvre that morning to try and see a bit more of the museum, and we went to the Starbucks that's right there at the museum. Then we went to see Notre Dame. We lit some candles, looked at these gorgeous stained glass windows, and then we walked around a bit more. We had a couple more places we wanted to see, and so I got these pictures of just walking around. They've got these little book stands that are so cool, so cute, and we walked along the river, got pictures of me on this bridge, and then we had to head back. We only had the one night to spend in Paris before we headed back, and the coolest thing happened. We had some problems with some of our people's tickets. We were getting delayed. It was really stressful, but it ended up being okay because we were on a train car with like a whole bunch of famous actors and singers that were coming back from an event. And we actually ran into Warwick Davis. He was like 2 seats behind us. We were little fangirls. It was probably very embarrassing, but we went back and talked to him, asked if we could get his autograph. His wife stood up and asked if we wanted her to take a picture for us. And it was such a good experience. They were so sweet. And he signed a paper for us. So I stuck that in here. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I was going to meet a famous actor while we were there. So that was a big deal. That was really cool. And this is our first morning back in London, back with our class. We went to go see the Samuel Johnson home, and he actually compiled one of the first English dictionaries that kind of formed what we have now. So I've got a picture of his dictionary, which is a bit different than what we have now, and then went to a place called the Cheshire Cheese for lunch, which was apparently a place that he frequented. I didn't know anything about him before the trip, but he did have a good pub to go to, so. Then we went back to King's Cross when we, weren't trying to actually catch a train. Went to the Harry Potter store. They've got platform 9 3/4 where you can pose for a picture of driving your little trolley through the wall. Super fun. I obviously bought souvenirs at the Harry Potter shop and got some really cute photos at the trolley, so that was fun. We went to the Sherlock Holmes Museum. We didn't pay to go through the museum because we had heard it wasn't that exciting, but we did go to his apartment at Baker Street. There's a picture of the apartment and the outside of the gift shop. We went in the gift shop. We didn't actually go in the museum, but it was worth visiting just to see Sherlock Holmes' place. And I have this page documenting the tube. We were on the tube every day of this trip trying to get to all of the different places we were going, so I thought it was worth documenting, having a whole page with the tube map that I carried around, pictures of the seats, and I got all these pictures on a day when we were pretty much the only people on the tube, so I didn't bother anybody. I didn't want to bug anybody to take pictures, but I did have a chance to get some pictures of an empty tube car. I got a picture of the Queensway Station sign, which is one of the stations that we used the most. It was equidistant from our hotel as the Bayswater station was. So I have this sticker from a London sticker book that I got that I put in here to document Bayswater because we took that all the time, and then I've got a picture of Queensway. That night, I went to go see Phantom of the Opera on West End. Super cool. Again, not something that I would have ordinarily done. I like theater, but I'm not like a theater nerd. So I was really glad I got to see this. I got my ticket, pictures of the theater. Then we took a day trip to Bath, which was fun. That was where Jane Austen lived, so there was a bunch of Jane Austen stuff. This bridge is apparently famous and used in a lot of movies. We took a walking tour. I bought some stuff. I've got a few more pictures from the walking tour, some really pretty sights. Just pictures of us hanging out and going around to all these different shops that were around. This is a booklet for the Jane Austen Museum there, but I got pictures of one of her early books that was super fun. It was really sassy. I really liked it. A picture of our guide and the front of the museum, and then we had tea there, which was really fun. It was our first like full tea experience with all of the snacks and sandwiches and tea and everything. And then that night when we got back to London, we went bowling. I was super tired that night and I was not really feeling up to it, but my friends convinced me. They were like, it's gonna be fun, you have to come bowling with us. So I did, and it was so much fun. I think partially because I was so tired, I was getting a little slap happy. I was dancing to the music, having a great time. So got pictures of us with our bowling balls and the place's card, and then all of us bowling. And then one of our last big things was going to the Tower of London. So we got to see the Tower Bridge, got a picture there, and then I've got my ticket for taking the tour. And I've got this map actually tucked in here. It's a little bit hard to get to, but that's fine. The map of the Tower of London, and then I've got, obviously, I bought more souvenirs. So I've got a receipt, and then some pictures from going around on the tour. A few more pictures of going on the tour and seeing the crown jewels. That was neat. And then afterward, we went to lunch at this cool ramen shop. I had another little cutout because there was actually one in York too. So I have a little cutout from the York brochure that I stuck in here, and some pictures of my lunch that was really tasty. It was fun. And we went to the Keats house, got to look around John Keats' house, and it was a bit of a museum. Our tour guide was super awesome and took us around. And then I've got a picture of the exterior of the house, and then I wrote about a little bit about what we did that evening that I didn't really have pictures of, but stuff that we walked around and did on our last night there. And then our ticket to go home. I didn't even write any journaling here because I felt like this kind of said it all. A ticket and then us sitting here exhausted. It was a big trip. We did a ton and we were doing stuff every single day, but it was so much fun. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching through my scrapbooks and listening to all my stories and listening to me geek out a little bit. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.